I understand what you're explaining about eating a high fat diet, but I
Mhm.
see different opinions, and I see people suggesting that you should eating a carnivore diet, but with moderate fat if you're trying to lose weight, because if you don't eat enough fat, it's at least not the amount of fat that your body wants in a day, then you're gonna more easily tap into your stored body fat. Is it
Yeah.
more complicated than that?
No, it's not a lot easier than that. That's just not true. It's just like, I mean, it's assuming a fact that's not in evidence. They're making a supposition, they're making a claim, but it's not actually supported by any facts or evidence. So they can say that all they want, but unless they can provide a trial or a study or some physiological design that supports that, then it's wrong. And remember, it's not just about the energy you're eating, it's about the nutrients that you're getting with that. If you're not eating enough fat, you're not going to get vitamin D3, K2, E, A, choline, DHA, EPA. All these things are essential and we have to get them, and you can get very sick without them. And the thing is that your body tracks nutrients, it doesn't track calories. And so you can find yourself very unsatiated and you want to eat more and more if you're eating very lean. Whereas if you add in the fat, your body goes, yeah, that's it, that's enough. We don't need to eat as much. And so you will have to forcibly limit yourself on how much you eat if you're eating other things and not eating enough fat. Fat is very satiating because your body's looking for those nutrients. The other thing is that what I've found is that a lot of people that are very malnourished, it's much more difficult for them to lose weight, because the thing is, it's not just about increasing your metabolic rate. You don't increase your metabolic rate if you don't have the substrate and the vitamins and the minerals in order to run your metabolism at a higher rate. Okay, so if you're trying to put on muscle, you're trying to move your body and turn this on and build this and do that. That's your metabolic rate going up. You need vitamins and minerals, proteins and fats to do that. If you are lacking in them, you will hit a bottleneck and your body will say, look, we can't do this anymore. We need to shut it down. So your metabolism will actually shut down. And so what I've actually seen in my patients, and I have a lot of weight loss patients, um, sort of doing health optimization, things like that. But a lot of people, come to this from a weight loss perspective, um, that they might be very deficient in a lot of nutrients, a lot of these animal source nutrition, vitamin B12, vitamin D, etc. Zinc and magnesium, and those aren't animal based, but there's so many plant anti-nutrients that block out. Corn blocks out 100% of zinc absorption. Black beans and other legumes can block out 75 to 100% of zinc absorption. So most people are low on zinc and magnesium and these other sorts of things. When you give them real food and you correct these things, including the fat soluble nutrients, and these go up, people actually find that they actually can lose weight more. They're getting healthier. That's the most important thing, but they're also losing weight. It's much more important to deal with your hormones and your insulin and your leptin and those sorts of things. And when you eat in this way, you eat a high fat, meat based ketogenic diet, your insulin will come down and your leptin will come down, absolutely. And then when that comes down enough, weight comes off without a problem. And so yes, there are ways to game the system and force your body to lose weight in an unhealthy manner, like eating less fat and causing protein poisoning, but that's not actually good for your health. And so that's what they're finding. It's not that they're eating less fat and so their body's using their fat instead of the fat you eat. No, that's this your body's going to your body's going to prioritize the fat in your fat anyway. But you still need these nutrients. You still need a certain amount. And sometimes you might find when people are losing weight, they start eating and it doesn't taste good. So I said, eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good. If bite number one doesn't taste good, you're done, right? So you may be that your body tells you, no, we're fine today. Don't worry about it. And that happens. I experienced that when I was losing weight. I did like 6 hours of working out. I was in the gym for 3 hours. I was at rugby for 3 hours. Came home. It's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh, I should eat a steak. I haven't eaten today, so I'm going to eat a big steak, and tomorrow I'm going to have another big 6 hour workout. And everything in me was like, don't do it. That sounds awful. And I was like, why is that? Why does steak not sound good? Because I mean, I love steak. It's my favorite thing to eat. But that was what my body was telling me. And I cooked a steak anyway, but I took some time with it, watched a movie and all that sort of stuff, did like a reverse sear, brought it out, and I started eating it. It just didn't taste good. And I got about a quarter of a way through, and I was just like, I am just really not enjoying this. I really don't like this. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to listen to my body and put it away. And I was very nervous about that because I was like, I'm going to need this energy for tomorrow. Well, the fact of the matter is you're tapped into your fat stores and you've got, a 65 kilo individual with only 6% body fat, so like a really lean elite athlete. That 65 kilo individual with only 6% body fat has over 35,000 kilocalories of energy, right? And I was way over 6% body fat, and I was probably 110 kilos, right? So I had probably 100,000 calories available. I clearly didn't need to eat in order to have energy for tomorrow. The energy we use today did not come from the meal we had last night or this morning. It comes from the meal that we had 2 weeks ago, right? But you still need some nutrition. You still need some fat. You still need some of those nutrients that come along with it. And if you are predominantly eating meat, even if you have excess fat stores, you can still go into protein poisoning. And that's what people are finding. They're getting very sick. You have people like the Primal Bot who's telling people, no, 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 everyone ate lean meat. No, they did not. That is
That was
false.
exactly what I was referring
Yeah,
about.
she's got that wrong. And she doesn't have a background in this. Neither does her husband. Her husband writes all her scripts, apparently. They're in this for a business angle. They're trying to do a product to say, hey, lose a whole bunch of weight really quickly. They don't care what the end result is. They don't care what people's health are at the end of it. And they misunderstand what is actually happening here. I have spoken to a lot of people that have taken their course. I mean, first of all, they charge thousands of dollars. They charge like $2,000 for a 3-month course, and they basically tell them to limit your calories. They give them sort of a meal plan. It's basically less than 1,000 calories a day, very low fat. And these people, a lot of people are getting sick. They're losing their hair. They have terrible energy. Their blood markers are getting all screwed up. Their health is getting impacted very negatively. Yeah, they lose weight because they're getting protein poisoning, and they're getting very sick as a result of that. And then people are saying, oh, that's ketogenesis. Ketosis is bad for you. Eat more carbs. And so you get these people that are stuck in here. They don't really know who to believe, and they have this very provocative and persuasive marketing from people like Primal Bot and elsewhere who are just trying to get money. And they charge $2,000 for these programs, and they say that they've treated over 5,000 people in these programs. That's $10 million that they've taken out of people. So this is that's what this is to them. They're trying to make money. I don't charge anything close to that. And a lot of the advice that she gives are taken directly from people like myself and others who have actually researched this. And they're taking this and they're selling it to you for $2,000, where we're providing it for free. That's pretty nasty. I don't approve of that. And I try to engage with them, and who knows who runs her Instagram account, but she had these posts saying, "Oh, you have to eat lean meat and all that sort of stuff because our ancestors would have eaten lean meat." And I just pointed out, like, no, that's actually not true. And pointed out all these other points, and they restricted me and blocked me from commenting or sending messages. And they said, "Oh, well, we find that this and this, and we've worked with over 5,000 people." Well, great. I've worked with over 10,000 people, and I'm an actual medical doctor, and I see people from a medical point of view, not just a crash weight loss point of view. Right. And so I'm dealing with them after effect because I'm following these people for 5, 6, 7 years now. And I'm actually seeing what works in the long run, not just steal $2,000 from them, give them protein poisoning, crash them. I mean, you want to lose weight, give yourself cholera. You'll lose weight. You lose like 30 pounds in a week. No problem. Right. That's not healthy. Right. So it's not about weight loss. It's about health gain. And you can absolutely lose just as much weight. It might take a little longer for some people. Giving someone protein poisoning forces the issue. So most people will actually lose weight and body fat very quickly by going ketogenic carnivore. Some people won't. Some people come from different metabolic backgrounds, and it will just take longer for their bodies to heal, for the metabolism to heal, for the body to get healthy enough that they can lose weight. And so that doesn't buy the Ferrari, right? So what they want is they want this method that will force your weight loss. And what that is protein poisoning. So they say, just eat a whole bunch of lean meat and you will definitely lose weight. Well, you know what? If you cut off your leg, you will definitely lose weight too. Is that in your best interests? Right? No, of course it's not. Right? So, yeah, no, I have a big problem with that because I've seen a lot of people get hurt by that, and that's leading into this whole rash of people leaving carnivore because they're saying ketosis is harmful. It's not. All the long-term studies actually show that ketosis does not elevate your cortisol, does not reduce your thyroid. I see this in my patients. I'm tracking them for years. They don't have any of those issues. The Inuit don't have any of those issues. Other native populations that are carnivore never have those issues. People that walked from Asia to North America over the ice bridge in the Arctic Circle during the last ice age didn't have any of these issues. You know how I know? Because they're not dead. They actually made it over to North America, right? Over thousands of generations eating zero carbohydrates. They did not have any of these problems. If you have thyroid dysfunction as an adult or as a child, congenital thyroid hypothyroidism is called cretinism. You get very serious neurological and physical growth deformities, and you have very short stature, a very low IQ, facial deformities, things like that. We're not seeing a whole bunch of skeletons and skulls with cretinistic features, right? So that didn't happen, right? Because they were only eating meat. They only had access to meat. And we see this from the stable isotope studies that they actually were only eating meat. And yet no signs of cretinism, no signs of hypothyroidism. So it's just wrong. It's not supported by the data. It's not supported by the literature. But you get people because people like Primal Bot, she's got a big account, so she reaches a lot of people, and she's making persuasive arguments because she says something in a confident way based on no facts or evidence. And she just says, oh, animals are really lean in the wild. No, they're not. They have a lot of abdominal fat. They have a lot of subcutaneous fat. It's just you trim that away. There's a lot of fat under the skin that people just throw away. There's a lot of fat around the muscles that people just throw away. The muscle bodies themselves are lean because they're not eating carbohydrates. There's no marbling, right? Which is a pathological sign, actually. It's called myosteatosis. But they have just as much, if not more, subcutaneous fat and abdominal fat. The omentum is entirely made out of fat. The mesentery is the blood supply to your intestines. That's entirely covered in fat. You have fat around your kidneys. You have fat in your retroperitoneum. You have all sorts of fat around the body. And the natives used that. And they hunted whales. They hunted seals. They hunted buffalo because the larger the animal, the more fat as a percentage of their body, right? That's why we hunted elephants and mammoths and megafauna. That's why we broke open bones and got at the marrow, which is entirely made out of fat. That's why early humans, before we had sharpened tools, we were using rocks as pound stones and breaking open the skulls of carrion animals to get at the brain, which is entirely made out of fat or predominantly made out of fat. And so the idea that our ancestors really didn't eat a lot of fat is just inaccurate, and it doesn't even hold up to the most superficial scrutiny. I mean, whales are not lean, right? Neither polar bears or seals or anything like that. They're not lean animals. And there's a lot of fat in the animal. We just have trimmed all that stuff off and thrown it away because we've been told that fat is bad for you. The healthier the animal, the more fat it's going to have on them. And that's why we went after the bigger, the stronger, the healthiest animals, because those are the ones that had the most fat, because we prized that. Again, Native Americans, 80% calories from fat. So people listen to that. Unfortunately, they get taken in by it, which is why I've had to do videos trying to counter this. Because I've seen a lot of people like, oh, okay, I'm gonna cut out the fat, and all of a sudden they get sick. They've been doing carnivore for years. They've been very healthy. They've been doing great. But then they get convinced to cut out fat, and then now they get sick. And the thing is too is that a lot of these people are doing this lean carnivore diet. Then they get sick. They lose their hair. They have to get protein poisoning, all that sort of stuff. The hair loss is a common one. And this was seen, oh, ketosis made me lose my hair. No, it didn't. The protein poisoning made you lose your hair. And so when people do this, they're eating really lean. They're getting sick. They're having problems. They lose their hair. They lose weight, but they lose their health. And then now you have this rise in people saying, oh my God, carbohydrates are the way. You have to eat these things because ketosis is harmful. It actually slows your metabolism down eventually. No, it speeds up your metabolism because it increases your basal metabolic rate by 351 kilocalories a day. So you can't say that it slows your metabolism when it objectively improves your metabolism. And in fact, when people eat more fat, that's why they get through a fat loss stall. So it's completely the opposite of what they're saying. And then some people are finding that they want to use a lot of dairy because, oh, dairy is carnivore. It's like, well, sure, it has a lot of really good nutrients, but the problem is it has casomorphines, which tell the baby animal to eat more and store energy so it can grow, because babies are vulnerable. They get eaten. And so they need to grow big and strong very quickly or else they get eaten. And so people start adding in more dairy, or they even start with dairy because they say, like, I don't think I can just do meat. Oh, but look at this. There's all these recipes and I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. That's not really the best way to do it, especially if you're trying to lose weight, because you get these casomorphines, you get these problems, and then all of a sudden you're putting on weight or you can't lose weight. Or maybe you've been carnivore for a while and then you're starting to use dairy again and you start putting on weight. And then instead of saying, okay, well, maybe it's the dairy, or look, it's very simple. If you're ever eating anything besides meat and you're drinking anything besides water, just cut it all out. Just go to just high fat meat and water and see how you go. It'll probably improve things. But instead of looking at that, they might, and some dairy has carbs, milk has carbs that will raise your insulin, and you will put on fat that way. It's designed to make you put on weight. It's designed to make you store energy. And so you will. And so some of these people are using dairy, then they're starting to put on weight, and they're like, oh my gosh, my metabolism is trash and all this sort of stuff. Well, but I've been using all this dairy this whole time. Yeah, it builds up. My mom eating a normal diet of just whole foods, just some rice and lean meat and veggies, which is what they're recommending you do, that, this healthy whole food sort of thing, low fat, high carb, moderate protein. That's exactly what we grew up eating in my house. And that's what gave my mom diabetes at 45. It didn't happen at 13. It happened at 45. It takes years and decades to build up. So if you're having a bit of dairy, maybe that works fine, because compared to what you were doing before, this is a massive improvement in what you're eating. But eventually it builds up and you start gaining weight and having harder to lose weight, and you're having all these problems. Or you might use artificial sweeteners or something like that, or maybe something might slip back in. And instead of looking at that and seeing what else you're having besides meat and water, people say, must be ketosis slowing down my metabolism, because that's what they're told. Must be elevated cortisol. They check their cortisol, it's normal. They check the thyroid, it's normal, or even optimal. Well, it still must be doing it. Okay, well, no, it must be slowing down your metabolism some other way. And then they add in, and then they start doing low fat, because, oh, well, maybe it's all this fat that I'm eating. And they do low fat. Then they start hurting their health, and they start getting protein poisoning. And they say, this is that damn ketosis again. And they add carbs back in, and lo and behold, they feel better because they reverse their protein poisoning. I've seen this so many times, I can't even count. And so that whole stuff with primal bod, that was a progenitor of this. And so her and her husband started this very incorrect misinformation that really does hurt people, and they capitalize on people's desperation to make money, and they gave them the wrong information that was actually making them sick. And this then led to, oh my gosh, ketosis is harmful, carnivore is harmful. No, that's not the right way to do it. No, you can't say people are doing it wrong. But yeah, I can. All right. Because I've been doing this for a lot longer than you, and I've treated people with it, and I know what works and I know what doesn't. You can do anything wrong. You can work out wrong. You can lift weights wrong. You can cause injuries and harm to yourself. You can train too hard. You can train too often. You won't give yourself rest periods. You can destroy your joints. You can do all sorts of things. So you can do anything wrong. You can do vegan diets better or worse. You can eat Oreo cookies and shoot heroin. Those are all vegan, right? Or you can eat a whole food vegan approach and be better off, and take supplements and all that sort of stuff, and be far better off than the guy eating junk food, Doritos, Oreo cookies, and beer without taking supplements. Those are two very different circumstances. You're going to have two very different outcomes. And if you're eating a carnivore diet and you're eating very low fat, you are going to have a negative outcome. You're going to have a very different outcome than if you eat a high fat carnivore diet. If you're using dairy, you're going to have a different outcome if you're not using dairy, and so on. So of course you can do things better or worse. And just saying, no, you're not allowed to shame people saying that they're not doing it correctly. That just is putting your head in the sand. I mean, there are reasons why people can have a problem, and they're saying that no, it doesn't matter how you do carnivore. You can't say that they're doing it wrong, that ketosis is the problem and it raises your cortisol. Well, you're saying that being ketogenic is wrong. I'm saying that not eating enough fat is wrong. So obviously you get to say that someone's doing something wrong. You're saying that we're doing it wrong, right? Except that I'm having none of the problems that you're describing, and none of my patients are having any of those problems either. because I promote a very specific way of eating a carnivore diet. And so the people that I work with and that are my patients, they don't have any of those problems, And so um, doing that and getting that misinformation out there, I think has caused a lot of harm. And I think as now we're seeing that big knock-on effect of eating low fat, getting protein poisoning, getting sick, adding back in carbs, and thinking that was ketosis as opposed to the protein poisoning. Adding in dairy, going, oh my gosh, I'm gaining weight. It must be all this fat. Cutting out the fat, getting protein poisoning, adding back in carbs must have been the ketosis. So that was the origin of that. And I think that has caused a huge amount of harm. And I hope that she sees that and understands that what she's doing is actually hurting people. It's not hurting her pocketbook, so she's you know probably not going to stop. But it is a really bad idea to follow that advice.